Hi, welcome to TNC Talks Nonprofit. I'm Scott.
I'm Mercedes with the Nonprofit Council.
And the Nonprofit Council's mission is to support, connect, and strengthen the executives of nonprofits in our community. And we do that by a myriad of programs and connectivity to the CEOs and executive directors of nonprofits in Bear and surrounding counties. This is our podcast, and we would like to also welcome our guest today, Armen Babajanian from World Affairs Council, who actually offices just around the corner. So we thought, let's talk nonprofit.
Well, before we start talking nonprofits, we need to say that we are being supported by Methodist Healthcare Ministries for this podcast.
Yes, thank you for that.
We're still working out the kinks over here, second podcast.
They have prominent logo position on our open, and we appreciate the sponsorship this year from Methodist Healthcare Ministries.
Thanks for having me. This is wonderful. How exciting.
I know.
This is a new thing for San Antonio, and as far as I know, nationwide of having a nonprofit podcast. So congratulations.
Thanks. It's the only one we know of.
Yes.
And that's
Have you done any research on that, though?
No.
Well, just to give our viewers a little bit of a background, and you, because you're kind of flying into this, we like to do things a little on the cuff, as you'll find out through this podcast. But the impetus of this podcast really was because we're a membership-based organization with over 250 members, mostly nonprofit CEOs, executive directors. We all have a story to tell. And so we want to hear those stories. How did you get in the nonprofit sector? Because I don't think many people, when they're going through school or, going into their working years, think, gosh, I really want to work in a nonprofit. I just don't think that's very common. And through the years of getting to know members, we've heard many different stories of how they kind of landed here. And so that's really why we're here today, because we want to hear how Armen started in the nonprofit sector, and also you can share what World Affairs Council is and what you're doing right now, but we can kind of backtrack after you talk about your mission, how you got here in the first place.
Sure, absolutely. I don't want to take too long in explaining it, but I was born.
We're on the map.
There's no cap on time, so you just knock yourself out.
After I graduated college, my family was living in Houston. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I majored in political science and minored in psychology. And I knew I wanted to do something that was impactful, that involved youth. Mm-hmm. And I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. And I moved to Houston. My brother was living there. My parents were in transition from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I landed there and started volunteering with CASA, and which was a rewarding and worthwhile experience. And we have a local CASA here as well. Mm-hmm. And through that volunteer experience, I landed an opportunity with Big Brothers Big Sisters. My supervisor at CASA, her mom was a program director at Big Brothers Big Sisters
in Houston.
And she said, "Well, do you want a job?" And I said, "Well, I'm not working, so yes,
I need a job."
And I'd heard, like everyone, I'd heard about Big Brothers Big Sisters, but not very well informed. And I interviewed, and the position they were asking for was a case manager. So once the bigs and littles, you match up the kids and with the volunteers, and you keep track of them and how the relationship is doing and the impact they're having, and guide them in different ways. But as a young little punk, I was like, okay, I think I could do that, but I really like marketing. And I kind of shared that in my interview with the CEO. And so she gave me an opportunity. She said, well, why don't we divide your role up between doing program and external relations and marketing? And I don't know why she gave me that chance, but some
you
people
must have been pretty confident.
Yeah, or let's say confident. Let's say confident.
Did they have anyone in that role?
They didn't. I think there was someone who oversaw communications, but they didn't have someone who was kind of boots on the ground, partnering with other organizations and doing media stuff. And I know I liked that, but I had no experience whatsoever. But she gave me a chance, which is really something to be said of her leadership. or she was desperate.
Well, now that we've worked in the sector, well, it could have been both.
Well, and the
Maybe.
connectivity, though, of
Mhm.
the CASA
Yeah.
to Big Brothers.
That's right.
So, we all talk.
Well, and it also comes back to, I think, the theme in my overall theme when it comes to nonprofit fundraising, partnership, and growth and boards. It's all relational, and so
Yep.
that relationship with my supervisor at CASA extended to Big Brothers Big Sisters, which actually it extended to where I am now. Eventually, down the line, and so, I got to work with some local media there, and did program and did outreach and recruitment and radio and TV, to the point where we went through a really hard time after 9/11 had happened, and we went through 2 rounds of layoffs, and I was affected by the second round. One of our board members was a news anchor. And he said, Armen, I'm so sorry to hear this happen. Let me know if I could help. I said, yeah, you could help by getting me a job.
I want to be a TV reporter.
So he orchestrated it, and I interviewed to not get, it wasn't a job, it was an internship.
Oh.
And I started an internship at KPRC.
Oh my
Channel
God.
2. Yeah. And so Cambrell Marshall, who's an anchor at, I think he's still there. He does meteorology. He was on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Long story short, I started doing. I worked at the assignment desk. They had me doing little projects. My second day, they said, "Hey, can you be here at 5 a.m. tomorrow?" And then I jokingly told the producers, like, "Why, is the president coming?" Well, so President Bush was coming because the space shuttle had exploded, and he was coming to Ellington Field, and my role was to help the photographer capture the landing of Air Force One.
Wow.
And so I was in the press box.
On day 2?
Day 2.
Wow.
And so I was in the press box at Ellington Field and just holding a mic, telling, I didn't even know what I was doing, to be honest. But it was such a worthwhile experience. I saw the president and first lady come out and do their.
Wow.
Long story short, I was trying to find a job, and eventually it landed me in the San Antonio Kerrville area. And
how long were you at the? Oh, sorry.
No, who knew we had a similar background in TV?
Yeah. We never talked about it.
No,
until today.
See what happens?
I'm telling you. Wow, that's
great. So
what
how
else
long
are we going to know about each other?
We're not going to find out.
So how long were you at the TV station for?
I was there for about 6 months. They actually offered me a job.
And you chose to go back to the nonprofit sector.
As Scott could relate, and anyone listening or watching, media does not have a lot of budget for new employees or new people who are just starting off. And the amount I was trying to see how I'm going to be able to, make ends meet. And to this day, I still question, was that the right thing to do, to say thank you, but no thanks?
It was. Trust me, after 22 years in the business of TV.
Really?
Yeah.
It was just something, I've always liked media in some aspects, and now with podcasts and so many other, it was such an attractive offer.
Oh.
And so I had to say no, but that no landed me here, and I probably wouldn't have met you all. So.
Yeah.
So what brought you to San Antonio?
Yeah.
So, while I was looking for a job, and not finding, I was getting interviews with some nonprofits, nothing was sticking. And, I sat down one day and I said, okay, I've worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Why don't I apply just randomly to all the Big Brother Big Sister offices I'm willing to move to? And so I wrote an email to all the Texas ones. I'd lived in Connecticut for a little bit, so all the Connecticut ones, all the ones in California. And while I'm doing that, I said, why don't I throw in Hawaii too?
Just
because I've never lived there. But so the first rejection I got was from Hawaii. But then Denise
But you have like a Hawaiian shirt theme.
That's right. I'm still in the moment. So then Denise Barkhurst, who's now the CEO, was the executive vice president at the time.
Okay.
She interviewed me in 2003.
Okay.
And she said there's an opportunity here in San Antonio. There's also an opportunity in Kerrville, Texas, to restart the program because it had gone through several directors and they were looking for someone. And my first question was, where the heck is Kerrville?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I got my belongings and moved to Kerrville, Texas to stay there for 2 years.
Wow.
And it ended up being 6 years. So did that. And then once Denise became the CEO, she promoted me to move to San Antonio and do their external relations and marketing and media and advocacy and all that stuff.
Yeah. And there's where some of that political science comes in.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so you were big brothers, big sisters, a total of how many years?
Total of 18 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
But did you tell us the story about leaving and going to Europe?
So, again, it comes back to relationships. When I moved to San Antonio, it was a great opportunity. I was overseeing outreach and recruitment, media, partnerships, and advocacy, and it was great. We had a great team at the time, and but sometime about during that period, I went to the national conference. And we had a new incoming national CEO, and I welcomed him and I said, if you ever need anything, let me know. I love international relations and I love government relations. And he called me about a year later and he said, hey, you remember you said that? And he said, we have a former Little who's originally from Dallas. He's a businessman who had a great experience as a Little. Went to Rice University, went to Stanford Business School, and he moved to Poland after that and started doing commercial real estate and has been doing so well where now he wants to give back and start a Big Brothers Big Sisters in Poland and wants someone from the States to go set it up, build it up, hire locally, and then come back.
Oh, wow.
And so I went. He invited me out to Poland and I went to check it out as my interview and packed up my 2 cats and moved to Warsaw, Poland.
Wow.
And language barrier, was that?
Yeah, it was, most of it was more cultural because, being in Texas, as you all know, especially being in Kerrville, you say hello to strangers, you make the eye contact. Even in Kerrville, if you're out driving at some of the ranches, you can relate to this, is you do a little wave while you're driving. And Poland does not have that. Poles are very restrained and reserved.
Okay.
And so it takes time to build a relationship, to build that trust.
Awesome.
But now I have lifelong friends who are there. They've come to visit me here. I still keep in touch.
Wow.
So Poland was culturally, it was a little difficult because of that reservation.
Howdy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting.
And a little cold.
Slightly cold. Yeah. But, it's a very historical country. It's beautiful. So many sites. And then it's kind of a conduit to other places. And so it allowed me to travel too. So it was I learned a little bit of Polish. Can
you say it on camera or no?
Dzień dobry, jak się masz? Asi? No, that's not. That's Spanish. But no, it's a very difficult language. It's they don't. If you look at the letters when they form words, you see a lot of consonants, but not too many vowels, and so you get a lot of and so and the language is it wasn't hard, but I got by. But the other thing was a lot of Poles are very pro-American. They love everything about our culture. So they practice with me learning English. And so I think their English improved more than my Polish improved. But I got all the things, beer, where the bathroom is, and
all the
and all the
important things.
bad words. Yeah,
That's why I was asking if you could say it on camera. So, is there still a Big Brothers Big Sisters?
I think so.
in
I think it's still
Poland?
functioning. There were some hurdles to, you talk about red tape and government.
Mm.
So, people think getting a 501c3 is hard here, which isn't that hard now.
Yeah.
So it
Judging
should
by the
be,
number of
yeah.
nonprofits that we
That's
have,
right.
I would agree with that.
But in Poland, it was, you had to go through you went through the federal government. A judge had to sign off on it. The judge was not in town, and they couldn't do it for like 2 months. And it was like, is there someone else who could sign off on it? No, it's got to be that judge. But you know what? The coolest thing about that experience was the same reasons why kids were put into the program here in the States, very similar to why the kids were put in that program in Poland. And the same issues we had there with volunteers stepping up. Oh, I don't have the time.
Right.
I have family. So it's, you have these cultural differences, but after it made me realize
was fundraising different.
I was very lucky because of the person who hired me. He had the backing. So he said, I don't want you to have to worry about fundraising.
Oh, wow.
If we could do that with can you imagine that?
Yeah.
No.
So you just focused on
the programming.
Yeah.
Just focused
getting
on
it built up.
Yeah.
Getting it. I mean, all the logistics and the forms.
Yeah.
I mean, everything you see in the gaggle, to all the job descriptions and the financial statements and all that stuff, which was great to have because of my experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah.
So we just translated it and got the program going, and we grew to about 100 or so matches before I left. I don't know how many there's now, but it was a slow start. But once it got going, and once they realized I wasn't working for the CIA, I was there to help the community out.
Right.
It was great. It was a wonderful experience.
So then how did you go from Big Brothers Big Sisters to your current gig at World Affairs Council? And what is World Affairs Council anyway?
So the World Affairs Council was formed in San Antonio in 1982.
Oh, it started here?
No, the chapter here started in
this chapter here, because
it started in the early 1900s in New York. We have 90 affiliates around the country. Texas has 5 offices. Mm-hmm. Most of the 90 are volunteer run, so they're either board run or people from the community. About 40% or so are like that. Mm-hmm. So it's not most; it's just under half of them. Yeah. And so what the organization does, and it's pretty symbolic of all of the chapters, is our goal is to inform and educate the community about U.S. foreign policy and international relations. And we do that by having panel discussions. We do that by having lectures or fireside chats. And the really cool thing is the community is invited to attend. For example, in this past January, we had the former prison guard of Nelson Mandela.
Oh, wow.
On our program. We had it at Alamo Colleges. We had Commissioner Tommy Calvert as the moderator. We had Reggie Williams on the panel. And so we invite the community to come and learn, but it's not a one-way transaction. They're able to hear and then ask questions and then form relationships. Some of them keep in touch with the panelists. So that's not their 30-second soundbite. They actually can connect with people from around the world.
That's really cool.
So in the early 80s, the Judge Wolfs, the Zacharys, the Frosts, the Lila Cockrells, they got together and they were looking at San Antonio as an international city. And they were saying, where are we lacking? And it's probably a question we're still asking, right? And so they looked at other cities and they said, those cities have World Affairs Councils. We need one here. And that was the birth of the World Affairs Council.
How interesting.
So it kind of started as volunteer run?
It was volunteer run initially, and then it quickly became supported. The business community stepped up. And Barbara Schneider, who was who was there for 18 years, same number of years as I was with Big
Wow.
Brothers Big Sisters. She ran that organization, and then we had several in between her tenure and mine. And we're trying to be more out into the community, more proactive, form partnerships and collaborations. We feel this is something really important, especially now where there's a lot of division, a lot of misunderstanding and not understanding other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think we could put a dent in that.
That's really cool. And that kind of ties back to your college degree. So you kind of done this really full circle.
We were talking about how when you have a major and how that translates into what you're doing. I would not have predicted when I was in college. I was thinking maybe law school, maybe grad school, maybe something at the UN, but it's funny how the paths kind of divert and things happen as they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sound like the perfect guy for the job.
Who's that?
You.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And now you're a member of the council.
Yeah. I mean, this has been, we've been through it since the beginning.
Yeah.
Come a long way. It has progressed so well under y'all's leadership. And the boards. I'm not just saying that because I'm on the board.
That's right. We did not mention that. Membership chair.
Well, and you did head up our advocacy committee for some time with, forming those relationships with our city council and mayor's office and different entities here locally. And we appreciate that. Now you're a membership chair.
That's right.
And this is your first role as a CEO, ED. And so the council has really helped support you, I hope, through your journey.
But absolutely. I think, it's easy to pitch what the nonprofit does because it has helped me out, whether it's the gaggle, which is an email. How would you describe the gaggle?
Listserv.
Yeah.
A listserv of leaders communicating with each other with no restrictions, really. I mean, you could
pretty wild on there.
People ask any question.
And that, to me, since I've been here, the sharing of the executives on that email thread it's incredible. It is. All nonprofits are kind of in competition for funding resources, but when that gaggle hits and that email and they're asking for policies or just anything, everyone chimes in because they're all supportive of one another. And that's what we like about the organization.
It is probably, and I think it's indicative of other leaders too, of how helpful it is. And I don't respond to a lot of them, but I see all the communication happening, and I see how people are, the questions that are pressing, the responses that are so supportive. I don't see why a nonprofit wouldn't want to join. And we're we have a very small budget, but
it's affordable.
It's very affordable based on your budget.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, there's flexibility in that in some instances. So I think I would encourage anyone listening who is also, we haven't talked about for-profit, but if you're a nonprofit, it's so important for this listserv. It's so important to go to the leadership conferences and the meetings that are there. Learn so much about business leaders who understand the nonprofit world, and they're so interchangeable as far as the tactics and the style and the management and working with your team and building up. But also the big give, to be part of that. This has become one of our staple events, which hopefully we could talk about if we have time, our multicultural fair. And then the mixers is such a great place for leaders to come together with no judgment to be able to interact with each other. So it's been tremendous help for me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. As our membership chair, that was well said.
I know. Day later.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's...
free membership for the next year.
Yeah, there you go.
But we're affordable. So you can afford it.
Well, Armen, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your story.
Of course.
Because we all have a story to tell.
I know.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. A lot of that. I knew parts of it. I didn't know the whole string of events. So thank you for sharing all that with us.
It is. I think relationships are so critical, and sometimes to the detriment, because, I think a lot of nonprofits who do studies who are looking at impact, because sometimes the relation kind of outweighs the impact of the organization. And so I don't know if it's a next life or what it is, but I'd love to dive into that. Because sometimes the relationships are so relational, sometimes I think that can be compromised. The impact can be compromised. So that's another topic of conversation.
Well, and relational is hard to measure. Yes.
That's right.
As well.
That's right.
But it's an important piece.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that is.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for having me. Yeah. And I look forward to seeing this and hearing this. And what a great way to get the message out and have it in a fun way too. So thank you.
Yep. Of course.
Thanks for joining us.
And we hope we see you next time on TNC Talks Nonprofit.
Thanks to MHM, Methodist Healthcare Ministries, for sponsoring our episodes this year. See y'all next month.